East will be floating really. Thank you, sir. Hey, I can't hear you. Oh, hi, how's it going? Pretty good. Eastern Seaboard is in the high. Gotcha.
Right now on the National Weather Desk, growing heat wave. The oppressive summer is about to get worse for millions more Americans, while wildfires trap residents and tourists on Greek islands. Loop currents, how the movement of warm water could impact hurricane season.
This area can deepen or intensify storms that pass over.
Humidity and your health. Yes, there is a connection.
But there's also some long-term effects too, and these are more severe.
Do you know the signs of heat stroke in your pet?
Their tongues can also turn from pink to white or red.
And how the record heat is taking a toll on the bee population.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Angela Brown, the heat wave that set off record-breaking temperatures in the south and southwest is now expanding. By the end of this week, cities in the northeast will be flirting with triple-digit temperatures. Today, heat advisories are posted across Nebraska and Kansas. By Friday, cities along the eastern seaboard could see the highest temperatures of the summer, but there's still no relief in sight for the southwest. And it's not just America, folks. Greece just had its hottest July weekend in 50 years, creating tender, dry conditions. And that's a big problem for firefighters battling wildfires on several islands. We're talking about fires on roads where thousands of residents and tourists are trapped. Summer tourists are trapped. Many are sleeping in schools, boats, and even gyms.
We've heard that at least 2 British tour operators have canceled their holiday packages into Rhodes. They'll be flying flights into the island just to take people out. There's no sign of the weather breaking anytime soon as they work to try to get these fires under control.
And at least 19,000 people have already been evacuated from Rhodes. That includes tourists, residents, and workers. There are also fires burning on the islands of Corfu and Evia. Back here at home, evacuations are also underway northeast of Phoenix, where lightning sparked a fire on Saturday that is now spreading. Jordan Bonnke is in Sunflower with details.
Air tankers and choppers have still been up in the air trying to control this fire. That's at 0% containment. Evacuation orders were put in place just before 6 p.m. on Sunday. And we heard from a family visiting their grandparents in Sunflower who picked up what they could and headed away from it all.
It was really just grab valuables or whatever means the most for us. That's, computers, memory cards, save the pictures and such. Items can be replaced.
Maricopa County did set up an evacuation center at Wecopaw Casino, but the old bingo hall. As of Sunday night, no one was there.
And a cold front that moved through the eastern seaboard Friday night created a weekend of severe storms and flooding across the U.S. Parts of Kentucky, you can see the water here, Massachusetts and Georgia were hit the hardest. This is what it looked like at Fenway Park in Boston Friday night. Water rushing down the stairs into the stadium. The Red Sox game against the Mets was suspended due to extreme flooding. Parts of Georgia took a hit as well. One driver had to be pulled from his car after a round of storms in the Atlanta area. Heavy winds also took down trees and also some power lines. Lightning strikes were to blame for several fires. Thankfully, no reports of any major injuries, and today's forecast is calling for clear skies and temperatures in the low 90s. And off the coast of Florida, water temperatures are reaching record highs. That's not a problem for swimmers, but a major concern for coral reefs that thrive with ocean temperatures are in the mid 80s. But lately temps have been in the 90s, and that warm water could put Florida's coral reefs on the verge of extinction. Without them, we could lose a natural defense system. Healthy coral reefs help protect our coastlines during hurricanes. And warmer water can also cause more hurricanes and also impact their strength. Loop currents are areas of warm water that move into the Gulf of Mexico. Jennifer Collins explains how these currents affect hurricane strength.
Now, hurricanes need warm water to form and maintain their strength, but often they'll interact with cooler water well under the surface, which can limit strengthening. But there are areas where ocean heat content is greater or where warm water extends beyond the surface. An example of this is the Loop Current, a stream of warm water that travels into the Gulf of Mexico from the Caribbean. This area can deepen or intensify storms that pass over, as Dr. Nick Shea from the University of Miami explains was the case during Hurricane Ian last September.
We see a much higher correlation to hurricanes gaining strength in the Gulf when it encounters high ocean heat content. Ian explosively deepened over the Loop Current, made it onto the shelf. And in that case, the warm thermal structure extended from the surface all the way down to depth. So even if you're upwelling and mixing, you're essentially mixing hot water with fairly warm water.
Ian was able to undergo an eye wall replacement cycle on approach to the coast of Florida. This expanded the storm's wind field and its impacts from storm surge and wind. Now, the Loop Current can retreat and shed eddies, a slow-moving area, very high ocean heat content, which is occurring right now in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, just because the Loop Current or its eddies are present doesn't mean that a storm or hurricane will form over this region. It could add fuel for a storm if one passes over, only if the atmosphere conditions are also favorable. That is, low wind shear and no dry air.
Well, in some areas, toxic algae blooms are causing major problems in the water, but officials are saying the heat is just one of the issues. In Florida, some communities are banning the use of fertilizer to reduce the amount of toxic algae in the water, but as Dylan Huberman reports, is not having the impact that many had hoped for.
Fertilizer has long been believed to be the cause of algal blooms, the death of marine life, and loss of seagrass in the Indian River Lagoon. So much so, it prompted fertilizer restrictions in local counties to reduce nutrient runoff into the Indian River Lagoon. Additional nutrients in the water, particularly nitrogen, could have several negative results, including toxic algae. Dr. Brian LaPointe says this new study from FAU found these fertilizer bans aren't cleaning the water in the way many had hoped.
I think they were done in the spirit of good faith that they were going to help. The problem is the science at the time that these were passed, these ordinances actually did not support the bans.
Instead, the study points to sewage as the main cause. The study found fertilizers represent 21% of all nitrogen in the lagoon, compared to 79% from septic systems.
The lagoon has over 300,000 septic systems. Many of these date back to the 1960s. So these septic plumes contaminate the groundwater. They move slowly. Just the base flow of the lagoon is the groundwater.
The findings of this study are worrying those who want to keep fertilizer bans in place, like Eve Samples, the executive director of Friends of the Everglades.
I hope this study isn't used to preempt local fertilizer ordinances or to stop residents who want to bring them to their communities from doing so. This is information to factor in, but it shouldn't be used to stop common sense nutrient pollution reduction.
Well, 7 years ago, a spacecraft launched with a mission: land on an asteroid, collect a sample, and then bring it back to Earth. We're now just a few months away from that spacecraft when it's scheduled to land in Utah. Lincoln Graves shows us how project leaders are getting ready.
In late September, the world will focus on Utah's West Desert. A capsule like this one will land there, carrying some precious cargo.
The more we learn about ourselves, the more exciting it is to realize that the information that answers these big questions of where did we come from are actually out there if we go out and seek it.
This mission started in 2016 when a rocket carrying the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft launched. In 2020, the spacecraft landed on the Bennu asteroid, collected a sample, and lifted up again to head back to Earth. The Space Dynamics Laboratory at Utah State University was in charge of the spacecraft's cameras.
I mean, this is the first time we've ever collected a sample from an asteroid and brought it back to Earth in pristine condition. So we'll learn so much about how our life formed on Earth and how the planets formed.
First, it has to land according to plan. As it comes in, Lindsay Carl at the Utah Test and Training Range is in charge of watching for it.
Once that SRC separates from the bus and it is entering Earth's atmosphere, then it's passed off to us for tracking.
You don't want to lose it right at the end, right? It's like you're throwing the touchdown pass to win the game and you fumble it and out of bounds kind of thing.
As long as nothing goes wrong, everything goes as planned, that capsule is expected to land here in the desert on the morning of September 24th.
And if you're looking for more great weather content, check out our podcast, Off the Radar. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, the intense heat in the south is threatening bee populations. We'll find out what Arizona beekeepers are doing about it. And we'll take a look at how the intense heat can impact your health and also the health of your pets.
I'm meteorologist Emily Santam. Let's take a look at the Northeast this morning. We're going to be in the 80s for today, mostly mid-80s, a little bit cooler on the coast. Hour by hour, starting at 8:30, we have some showers and storms in New York. They'll move through to Vermont as we enter the 3 o'clock hour. Still in the upper 70s, some low 80s in some areas. We don't see any storms and showers in the Maine area until 8 p.m. Monday night.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the mid-Atlantic region. Starting off with perhaps a few showers and thunderstorms down in central and eastern Virginia. Those could build as we head through the midday and into the afternoon. Some scattered storms up and down the 95 corridor, continuing all the way through the PM commute before those diminish. And it is definitely going to be a warmer and more humid day as that latest weather maker moves through. 87 in Baltimore, 88 at Roanoke, 86 at Cumberland, and near 90 in Philly. That's the scene here.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs. We're going to see a hot one out there in Raleigh, looking at about 86 degrees, 87 Charleston, 90 in Atlanta, make it about 91 degrees, Nashville 91, 93 in Mobile, and looking at 96 West Palm, so very hot temperatures in South Florida. Most of the area is going to see sun and clouds to start the day off, but we could get a few pop-up showers and thunderstorms along the I-95 corridor through the Carolinas and Georgia. Better chances for showers and thunderstorms late evening through parts of South Florida.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
A Pennsylvania man got a rare sight before mowing the lawn. This pink grasshopper his daughter pointed out before he cut the grass. He snapped a photo and the insect returned to the wild. There have been only a few other sightings of pink grasshoppers in the United States. And during a weekend trek on Mount Rainier, the formation of this lenticular cloud captured over the Winthrop Glacier.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Instagram.
Bee populations in the Southwest. Ashley Paredes has more on how beekeepers are protecting them in Arizona.
If you look really close, you can see her tongue. Just like any living creature, bees can only tolerate so much heat, especially in Arizona, and record-breaking conditions.
This is sugar water. It's a food source, supplement food source, and then this is regular water.
Studies have indicated extreme heat is leading to a decline in bees. That's why beekeeper Connie Moore is doing all she can to protect them.
All of mine have screen bottom boards.
allows for lots of airflow. They'll use a gallon of water a day sometimes, if not more. Yeah, just trying to cool, and not consuming it, but cooling off the hive and all that stuff.
She is the owner of Honey Hive Farms in Peoria, where right now she is taking some of her bigger colonies and making them smaller, placing them in shaded areas.
We pulled bees off and basically made what we call nukes, a nucleus baby colony, just to kind of help dissipate that heat. Less bodies in that house.
Unfortunately, even with precautions, the heat impacted a colony at her new farm, meaning they lost nearly 30,000 bees. She says even losing one is devastating.
If they die off, we are in big trouble. That impacts our whole food system. Not just that, but they are beneficial because obviously they're the only ones that make honey. Honey is used not just for consumption, but it's also used for sometimes wound care.
But there are things you can do to help. The best way to keep bees cool is to leave out a bucket of water for them and put it in the same location. That way they know where to go. It's also helpful if you use a floating device, place it inside the water. That way if they fall in, they're able to climb back out.
And it's not just bees feeling the heat. You may have had more headaches or even more migraines this time of the year. Medical reporter Liz Bonus explains why you may be able to blame it on the weather.
It's likely due to several things that occur outdoors in the summer months, according to Cleveland Clinic headache specialist Dr. Ahmad Estamalik. The Cleveland Clinic provided this video.
You have significant barometric pressure change.
Barometric pressure is the measurement of air pressure in the atmosphere. It changes as the weather changes. In addition to that,
in the summer especially, we see a lot of people that just seem to not hydrate at the same level, especially when it's hot and muggy. I tell people an easy way to figure out how much to hydrate is half of your body weight in ounces.
That means if you weigh 150 pounds, you need 75 ounces of water a day or another beverage, according to Ohio's Tri-Health nurse practitioner Cheryl McKee. That's about 9 cups. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says, on average, most of us get about 4 per day. As for other reasons you may get migraines and how to treat them,
there is a protein in your body that everyone makes that's responsible for vasodilation and keeping your gut moving as it's supposed to. Well, what they found out is that migraine sufferers make too much of this. So they have all of these newer medications that really target that, and they don't have many drug interactions or contraindications, and they're really safe.
Botox, which is a wrinkle reducer, can also be used in the forehead to reduce migraines. And here's something else to know.
No headache is normal. I have many people come and say, well, I get headaches just like everyone. Surprisingly, there are people in the world that do not get headaches.
New England has been spared the oppressive heat that much of the nation is facing, but the number of humid days is actually growing. Meteorologist Christina Ernie shows us that could have an impact on your health.
Data over the past 30 to 40 years actually shows the average humidity throughout June, July, and August, our summertime months, climbing. And this year, the first 18 days of July, we saw the second highest number of hours with dew points at or above 65 degrees, which is the threshold for feeling very humid. Humidity can be uncomfortable for sure, but it actually can also impact our health. Short-term impacts from dew point temperatures over 70 include dehydration, heat exhaustion or heat stroke, fatigue, heat rash even, and very poor sleep quality. But there's also some long-term effects too, and these are more severe, like developing skin and throat irritation over time and even developing some chronic respiratory illnesses like asthma. So this rising humidity that's sticking around for us in southern New England, it actually is going to be affecting our health long term.
You know, your dog is impacted by extreme heat just like we are, but do you know the signs that your dog may be overheating? Mikkel Owens spoke with an expert about what to look out for and how to keep your dog active inside when it's too hot outside.
Besides watching out for excessive panting, dogs that are overheating will also slow down and usually lay down. Their tongues can also turn from pink to white or red. But that doesn't mean you need to stress about keeping your dog happy by exercising them outside in the heat.
The mental stimulation can be as effective, if not more beneficial in the long run, because we're using their brain, we're helping them learn something new that we can transfer into everyday activities.
Another trainer I spoke with today agrees about the importance of mental stimulation and says that this time of year it's too hot to walk anyway, So take that 20 minutes and do some treat training instead.
We do a little find it game. You can do hide and seek with your dog. I always tell my clients, you can work on some things you want to work on. Work on those basic cues that you need him to learn.
Other mentally stimulating indoor activities include food puzzles and scent games. But if you are going to go outside with your dog, don't forget about those paws.
As tough as paws are, you got to be careful of that pavement, sand, whatever. Now, one way you can kind of check that is if you're actually, put the back of your hand on the ground and leave it 5 to 7 seconds. If it's too hot for the back of your hand, it's too hot for your dog to walk on it.
And for a lot of people looking to cool off, the beach is their go-to destination, but there are dangers while in the water. Meteorologist Chloe Coast recently posted about the risk of rip currents on TikTok.
During the summertime, a lot of people may go to the beach to cool off, but something you need to know about before you go is to avoid rip currents. So what is a rip current exactly? Let me explain. It's a powerful current of water that's moving away from the shoreline. It can pull even the strongest swimmers away from the shore. Rip currents form when waves break on the shoreline. Water piles up between breaking waves, and water sometimes will return to the sea in a narrow current moving away from the shore, usually perpendicular to the beach. If you're caught in a rip current, here's what you need to do. Don't fight the current. You'll tire yourself out doing so. Swim parallel to the shore to get out of the current. If you can't get out, float or tread water and wave for help. Make sure to swim in areas where there's a lifeguard on duty and pay extra close attention to children. Have a safe summer.
And as we go to break, a look at the beautiful Scottish coast.
Well, a very good Monday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buckmichael. Taking a look at weather story across the Midwest. The heat is expanding, and it is going to be in the 90s almost the entire Midwest here. We're dealing with some 80s across the Ohio Valley. But Wichita, look at that, 101 for the high today. As we move ahead into the day tomorrow, lots of 90s all across the board here with some scattered thunderstorms. And by the time that we get to Wednesday, a few pockets of rain here, but those 100s, triple-digit temperatures continue to expand farther north.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Joe DiCarlo. Look at our forecast across the region. Well, more hot temperatures starting off mainly in the 70s. Nice morning, but mostly sunny skies across the region today. Temperatures will warm up. 90s along the coast, but very humid. Low 100s down the I-35 corridor in Texas. We are watching for some isolated showers far south Texas, Corpus Christi up towards San Antonio, but most of us are going to stay pretty quiet and quiet overnight as well for your Tuesday. Back with the heat. Temperatures back near 100.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson. Here's what's happening across the West. We've got a big cool down coming in along the Pacific Northwest where temperatures are dropping down to 20 degrees cooler, whereas it's extremely hot with excessive heat warnings and advisories across big portions of the Southwest. In that triple-digit heat, we're going to see some potential thunderstorms as we have that little disturbance that will spawn those. Some flash floodings possible, but the Northwest gets some rainfall. That's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
You know, trees are essential for our well-being, and in cities like Seattle, trees are becoming even more important. Meteorologist Kristen Clark explains.
Trees are not just great for seeking shade in summer. Turns out trees benefit our health and our climate. Through photosynthesis, forests offset 10 to 20% of the greenhouse gas emissions each year. By catching rainwater, reducing erosion, and creating more permeable soils, trees across the country prevent roughly 400 billion gallons of runoff annually, which is enough to fill around 600,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Trees are also important to the water supply and air quality. More than 50% of America's drinking water originates from forests. Tree leaves also absorb and remove over 35 billion pounds of air pollutants annually. Trees in urban areas can reduce the heat island effect and lower air conditioning needs by as much as 30%. Even more reason to embrace the shade this summer.
And we'd love to share your weather content on the air. You can find us on all of your favorite social media platforms. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow on the National Weather Desk, we'll look into what role the weather is playing in an increase in bear sightings. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Monday. We'll see you right back here.